very slowly.
Let's do it. Let's dive right into it. Let's not wait more time.
On the prop bowl. Take the unders.
Exactly. Gentlemen, of course, Joe, you've been a part of this before, so you know how it works. Roy, first time. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, line on socials. Nobody knows more in fantasy than the great Roy Burton.
Is Roy the favorite in this? Is Roy the favorite?
Hey,
Who's the favorite right now?
Well,
not me. Definitely not me.
We will find out at the end who's going to cross that line with the green check mark. Bottom line is we're going to go all over the place, from the running backs to the receivers to the quarterbacks, defenses. We're going to try and find those props that will ultimately lead to the green check marks. That's the name of the game. So I would like to start with this. And again, this is loose, wide open. We're going to go 40 minutes here. We'll take a quick timeout coming up in about 15 minutes. Let's open up with whether or not you guys agree or not. And Roy, I'll come to you first. Mm-hmm. I think the game starts and ends with the running back position for both sides. Fair statement? True? False? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement. I think you're going to see a lot of work for Pacheco and for McCaffrey in this game, and it makes sense. I mean, these guys are two super talented running backs. We've seen both of those guys get a ton of work, in the games, in the playoff games, leading up to this. So, yeah, I think if you want to, if you're looking at any props on Sunday's game, look heavily towards Pacheco and McCaffrey, because I think they're going to cash in on a lot of those numbers.
Which one do you like more, Pacheco or McCaffrey props?
I like Pacheco ones more or less, more than McCaffrey. Some of those McCaffrey numbers are kind of big, just because he's been so good, over the past. Well, he's been so good for years, but he's been so good at least in the playoffs as far as total yards and scoring touchdowns and things like that. I think there's more value in those Pacheco numbers. So if I only had to play one of those guys, I'd probably play the Pacheco props more than the McCaffrey ones.
Joe Tansey, true or false? The game starts and ends with the running back position.
It does, and the best value bet on the board is Christian McCaffrey to win the Super Bowl MVP.
Boom. Now that's what I'm talking about, Joe.
Best value
What's
bet.
the number you're seeing right now? And why
plus 450 at DraftKings. And it's gone down from like plus 475. Look, if the 49ers are winning this game, Christian McCaffrey's probably having that most heaviest involvement. I mean, look at the matchups. Each set of cornerbacks, I don't think we're talking, at least from a broad standpoint in this matchup, of how good both sets of cornerbacks are. Like, there's going to be a game plan to negate Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. There's going to be a game plan to just smother Travis Kelce and basically make Mahomes beat the 49ers without Travis Kelce. Now, Kelce's still going to get his, I believe. But the more I look at this game, it's not more of a slam dunk, just bet Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. And I think the versatility that Christian McCaffrey brings, I mean, if you even have an inkling of the 49ers winning this game, you need to bet Christian McCaffrey to win the MVP. I don't think if the 49ers win, Brock Purdy wins this. The best player on that team is Christian McCaffrey. And what does the MVP award usually go to? The best player on the winning team. I think it's easily probably going to be Mahomes if the Chiefs win. But I mean, that's just sitting and it's been staring at me all week. I can't ignore McCaffrey to win MVP at plus 450.
I don't disagree at all. And I definitely believe we spoke about this last week. And I know, Joe, a lot of people were saying it yesterday as well. Of course, down here in Vegas.
There's a way to sprinkle that on both. If you like the 49ers side, Purdy and both McCaffrey, because they're like McCaffrey's plus 450.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's plus 2. What is he now? Plus 225 still? Something around there.
235.
I mean, it's those two are winning it if the 49ers get it. And the only thing, McCaffrey is a really good play for the MVP. My only problem is that if Brock Purdy, it doesn't matter if he has 150 yards or maybe very low 200s going into the last possession. But if he gets the last possession, the game-winning drive, he's the reason why they score. It's so hard. They just don't take it away from the quarterback. But Joe's right. There's only two people that are going to win it for the 49ers. It's going to be Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey, and that's it. I don't see Deebo winning it. I don't see Brandon Ayuk winning it. Maybe George Kittle. I think he could have a good game. I don't like a lot of his props.
Okay.
But I think it's those two. It's very, very much those two.
Let's bring it back.
I'm very scarred. I bet Odell Beckham 2 years ago to win MVP, and it was there. Like, it was literally in front of us. I think I said it on this exact show that OBJ MVP was the play. I'm no longer betting. I'm no longer betting long shot MVP props. I'm scarred forever by that. I'm keeping it very simple. And I kind of disagree with your point a little bit, John. Like, if the 49ers go on a game-winning drive, it's going to be heavy McCaffrey. Purdy has to throw the ball to McCaffrey, but I think it's going to be heavy McCaffrey. Like, you could make a case that everything that Purdy would do in that hypothetical is tied to Christian McCaffrey.
I do want to bring this up, though, and we learned it, I think, Joe, more we brought it back to our attention, I want to say, because of the Odell Beckham. Votes are in before 2 minutes. The votes are in for MVP. They get them in before the game is over. So this is something that you have to absolutely keep in mind if you're going to be wagering on the MVP, taking a long shot, whatever. A lot has to go right in those first 3 quarters, right? Like I look at Pacheco, 25 to 1, 30 to 1, whatever. Absolutely worth the flyer. Why not? Right? Just a little sprinkle, have some fun with that. I think, like my statement right in the beginning, it starts and ends with the running back position on both sides. That's why I feel like that. But again, Purdy goes on that drive at the end. Sure. But the three quarters leading up, it's McCaffrey, and he goes over his props, and he has 2 touchdowns. He's going to be the MVP of the game. Let's bring it back to the numbers here. Just real quick on this. Christian McCaffrey, 90.5. Isaiah Pacheco, 67.5.
That went down.
Yeah.
Oh, I like
minus 130, a little juicy there. As far as those running backs, Roy, over to you. Is it both overs for you? Is it spot on as far as the numbers are concerned? And who's got the possibility of breaking one for a big chunk? Where do you stand on those numbers right there for both running backs?
So the number one prop for me is that Pacheco number. I actually got it at 66.5. Now it's down. Now it's up to 67.5. But that Pacheco number to me seems way too low. I think to me that's the best prop on the board. He's averaging 21 carries a game in the postseason, and we saw the last couple of weeks like you can run on this Niners team. I mean, they're Detroit had 182 yards rushing against them. Green Bay had 136 yards rushing against them. But Pacheco's going to get 80% of the carries, 80% of the work, the backfield work for the Chiefs. So I absolutely love that Pacheco number. I think that McCaffrey number is probably right on. If I had to bet it, I'd probably bet over. But I don't like it nearly as much as that Pacheco number. I think that Pacheco number is the absolute best.
Say that number one more time, Roy. How many rushing attempts is Isaiah Pacheco averaging?
He's averaging 21 rushing attempts in the postseason this year.
And what's his rush attempts prop? 16 and a half.
16 and a half.
Yeah. I think he gets 20 for sure. More than that, I don't know, but I think he gets over 20.
Joe?
I'll pivot a little bit on the running back angle. I think the better value is in receiving yards for these running backs. So, look, I think this matchup as a whole is going to be so oriented on what each cornerbacks do, which, by the way, I think this is very important to note from a narrative standpoint. L'Jarius Sneed just had a child. Do with that information what you will. Whatever you want to do with that, sprinkle an MVP, interception. Will there
interception?
Be
interception.
Yeah. There's going to be at some point a major involvement with L'Jarius Sneed. I just wanted to make sure that's out in the open right now. But I think that if these top cornerbacks, Ward for San Francisco, Sneed for Kansas City, and McDuffie's played really well also, there's a reason why Stephon Diggs did very little in that one playoff game between the Bills and Chiefs. So I think the checkdowns are going to be there for the Chiefs. And I think Jerick McKinnon's status is kind of being debated right now. But if he doesn't play, I would take Pacheco receiving yards at 16.5 more than I would his rushing yards. And I'd probably pivot the same way with McCaffrey receiving yards at 34.5, just because I think those numbers are so sharp on the rushing angle, where I think the real difference is which team's running backs can contribute more in the pass game. And Edwards-Helaire as well.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually has my attention a little bit, especially in the red zone. He could score in this game. Like, I think Edwards-Helaire can get involved in the pass game, and we know Andy Reid does that. It's not just going to be all Isaiah Pacheco. He likes to put in different packages, different players in the red zone, in the goal line. I'm with you. I think actually Clyde Edwards-Helaire receiving props do interest me a lot.
And look, it's only 5.5 yards.
Right.
But again, I wouldn't bet any running back props on the Chiefs, at least receiving for the Chiefs, until we know for sure if Jerick McKinnon's playing, because that's a big X factor. He's their pass catching back.
All right. Now, running the combined here, running and receiving, rushing and receiving. Big number for McCaffrey at 130.5 there.
Jeez.
And then Pacheco, as we just brought up, 87.5. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that McCaffrey can't get there, but, the Chiefs defense, pretty darn
number.
good. Yeah, it is a lot of yards there, but he is dynamic, to say the least. All right, let's get on over to quarterbacks. Let's talk about the guys that, of course, are most important to both their offenses, and we know them very well.
Maybe Purdy is. He might be the 10th best player.
Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes first. And Joe, I'll come to you on this one because, I don't know, I like Baltimore. I get it. Great defense, tremendous all season. But that second half left a lot to be desired for me as far as Kansas City on the offensive side. Look, they've been able to make it all throughout the course of this year with mixing in with Rice and, of course, Kelsey and whoever else can get the ball as far as from Mahomes. But if Kelsey is the guy that is going to get the most catches, Mahomes, we expect from Mahomes as far as that game is concerned on Sunday from passing, because Kelsey, as I said, he's going to be the number one guy, no doubt. No, we all agree on that. But how many attempts are we looking at? Total yards for Mahomes? Is this going to be a game where he's dropping back 35 times, or is this going to be a game where he struggles to complete passes like he did in Baltimore?
So I think any discussion with that with Mahomes kind of pivots to who he's going to throw to. And obviously Kelsey is number one. I mean, in the last 12 playoff games he's played, and he's had at least 70 receiving yards. It's insane how consistent he's been. And we thought Kelsey was carrying a knock at some point second half of the regular season. Well, if he is, it clearly not showing in these two games. I would take Kelsey at 70.5 because he's going to be the target. But I think for passing props, I would actually pivot to who he's going to throw to and who beneath Rashee Rice can get those gains. And if you watched enough Kansas City games, you kind of know what the hierarchy is. MVS is going to get the deep shots. Justin Watson's kind of that chunk play guy, 15, 20 yards. And then Noah Gray is the guy, if Kelsey needs a breather, he's there. And then McCole Hardman's kind of the wild card, but I'm not trusting him after some of the drops. So I think, look, I'm not touching any Mahomes props, and it's kind of me pivoting to Justin Watson over 16.5 receiving yards. He's going to have to catch a few passes in this game. Look, it's going to be Kelsey, it's going to be Rice, but if Rice is locked up in his matchup with the 49ers secondary, and if the 49ers are so committed to Kelsey, there's got to be a guy either across the middle, a deep shot, whatever it may be. Watson seems to pop up in those spots at least a few plays per game. So I'm very kind of hesitant on props this year because they are so sharp. But I think in this instance, knowing what we've seen so many times out of the Chiefs, I'm kind of dabbling in these role players, the Edwards-Helaire if McKinnon doesn't play, Justin Watson, because I know he at least gets a few targets per game and has played in these types of games before. So I think those are the ways I target this outside of Kelsey.
Roy, to you with Mahomes, 260.5 here I'm seeing. Do we expect him to have, a slam dunk type of game, or do you see the struggles that existed in that game against Baltimore, especially in the second half where they had, 5 drives and they didn't get any points?
Yeah, no, I agree with Joe. Yeah, I don't think I'd touch a straight up Mahomes yardage prop in this game. If you look back at his game log, he just hasn't been that, effective. I won't say effective, but he just hasn't been throwing the ball around a lot like we're used to Patrick Mahomes doing. I mean, I think he has one 300-yard game since week 7. And he's only had, I think hasn't had any games with more than 2 touchdowns in that stretch either. So he's not the Patrick Mahomes that's going to, typically is going to put up 320, 330 yards just because I don't think the receivers are there. So that 260 number, I don't like. I think it's, if you're going to bet it, I would bet the under, even though I would hate it, but I wouldn't even touch that because I just don't think it's a good number. I think you're going to see something around the lines of, 230 yards, passing, probably another 30 yards on the ground running with Patrick Mahomes, and he'll be effective. He'll be good. That'll be enough to win. But I just don't see Patrick Mahomes throwing, going over 260 yards because, if you add up, the yards to Kelsey and the yards to Rashee Rice, where are those other, 90, 100 yards coming from? I just don't see it.
As far as Purdy is concerned, Roy, back to you. By the way, I love the under on 260.5. How many yards did Mahomes have in last year's Super Bowl, Sean Bryce? Do you remember?
Last year?
Yeah. He had 180 yards.
Yeah,
They can still win without him getting 300 yards. I think he's going to go under. I think this is going to be obviously a very slow game, and I think Kansas City's going to want that. But Patrick Mahomes isn't throwing for a ton of yards. He went over 260 once in the playoffs, and it was against Miami. But Miami dropped back 41 times. I don't think he drops back 41 times. I'll see. I think what we'll see is the Super Bowl last year. He dropped back 27 times. He threw 27 passes. So I think we see something similar and a similar stat line to that. But it's not Patrick Mahomes has to throw 300 yards to win. That's not what this team did last year. That's not what this team has to do now. So I love the under 260.5. I love it.
All right. Roy, back to you. Let's talk about Brock Purdy on the other side, 247.5. And again, I think a lot goes back to how you feel this score is going to be, right? The total in this game. If you think this is an over game where it's 50-plus points, then you're going to be feeling a lot of these overs. Of course, we understand it goes hand in hand. But for me, and again, I'm not going to wager on the under. I think that's a mistake. You do what you want. But for me, I'm good on taking the under with the Chiefs because they can go out there and drop 30. They can go out there and drop 27. And, of course, you could see the 49ers go for 21, 24, whatever it is. So I'm good on that. But I do like the under on Brock Purdy, 247.5 as far as total yards for his prop. Where do you stand on that one, Roy?
Yeah, that number's pretty good. If I had to bet it, I'd bet the under. But let me take a second to do a Joe Tansey like pivot on this if I can. The Brock Purdy, the prop that I like the best, over 3.5 rushing attempts. I think that's a pretty good number. It was plus 120 when I saw it the last time. So I'm going to assume it's still about the same. He has 11 rushing attempts so far in two postseason games. Opposing quarterbacks beat this prop against KC in 12 of 20 games this year, 60% of the time. And look, kneel downs count, right? So if they get a kneel down at the end of the first half, they get a kneel down at the end of the game. I mean, those are rushing attempts. So I only need 2 more outside of that. If you think the Niners are going to win. So I actually like the Brock Purdy over 3.5 rushing attempts, especially with Spagnuolo throwing, all sorts of stuff at the Niners offense on Sunday.
That's a great one, Roy. Well done.
And I would tell you that I believe the number one prop, at least last week, was Brock Purdy rushing yards. Went up to 12.5. It opened at 11.5. Of course, we saw what he was able to do in that second half against Detroit, where he basically, ran for his life.
Well, to me, that's the difference between what Jimmy Garoppolo was and he is. Like, he can actually run. Yeah. He can move. He's mobile. And I think that's part of his game. He hasn't had to use a lot, but now in these close games and really tough games, he has. So Roy, I love that. Over 3.5 at plus 120. I completely agree. I think he goes over that. I think his rush yards you can still look at, but rush attempts, that's a very good one.
Yeah, 12.5. That's one scamper outside and he picks it up, I think that's worth the shot. There's a couple small props that I have my eye on. And again, my favorite part about that is you're in the running no matter what, right? And like the Kyle Juszczyk number that we've been talking about for the last week. It's like 3.5 receiving yards. One catch. That's all you need. Slips out of the backfield. All right. Joe, anything on Brock Purdy for you?
I'm going to one up your pivot from my pivot, Roy. My pivot, my pivot foot's in place in the paint today. I don't like any quarterback props, but so I'm going to kind of go back to the game plan of what San Francisco is going to do. I think Debo and Ayuk are going to have trouble against Kansas City's secondary. I really do. And if George Kittle is involved, he'll be involved in the passing game in some capacity. But remember how elite of a blocker he is as well. So that takes away some of his chances to leak out into the middle where Christian McCaffrey would succeed. So if you're sensing a theme here, gentlemen, my favorite, prop involving Brock Purdy is Christian McCaffrey to have the most receptions at plus 700. And look, I think this is a huge McCaffrey game. Win or lose, I think this is McCaffrey. I really do. No matter which way it shapes up. So I'm gonna hammer some McCaffrey props. And look, it's the Super Bowl. There's going to be a trick play or two. Andy Reid's involved. Over 2.5 players to attempt to pass. And I'm going to specifically call my shot here and say Deebo Samuel is the one that attempts the pass. So plus 164 is the prop. I say Deebo Samuel. I'm going to actually go for the Chiefs side. I would say Travis Kelce throws the pass.
Interesting. One thing that I see a lot of people discussing with Travis Kelce is rushing yards. And I think
No,
that
don't fall
falls
for that.
into-
No.
I'm with you. I'm not.
How is he going to run the ball?
Well, again, I like I said, I think it comes back to your point where there's going to be a trick play. I'm with you. I do not like that play.
I don't like
but
that at all.
The only way he does this the only way he runs the ball if they try to tush push, because they've done that once or twice this season with Kelce under center. But the pop, all the pop passes, the trick plays, those count as passes. Like, I don't see Kelce being involved in the backfield, and the only way I see him doing that is if it's a lateral for him to throw a ball. I don't buy the rushing yards notion on Kelce.
All right, excellent stuff.
I do like one Brock Purdy prop, and that's interception.
Ooh.
Over half an interception. I love it.
What's the number?
To L'Jarius Sneed.
To L'Jarius Sneed. That's a better one. To L'Jarius Sneed.
When you call out these props, have the numbers. You got to have the numbers. You can't just be saying empty statements.
I don't care.
I like that. If it's minus 165, then I'm not going to touch it. But yeah, interception.
Oh, I'd still touch it with Brock Purdy. Absolutely.
I think
Brock Purdy's throwing a pick in this game.
You don't have to worry about Mahomes throwing an interception, I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
All right,
I would disagree with that. I think from a Mahomes standpoint, sure, from a mistake standpoint, but San Fran's defense is incredible. Like, you have to include like tip passes. Like, what happens if Fred Warner tips a pass in coverage and it goes to one of his guys? Like, that's very possible way. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Mahomes doesn't throw a pick.
Brock Purdy's minus 130 to throw a pick.
All right.
So I do like that.
Let's go ahead and take a quick timeout. We'll step aside, and we're going to come back, and we're going to hit on the receivers. We're going to talk about the one player that isn't getting discussed enough. His name was already brought up. I want to get into his numbers because I'm telling you, I think that's a slam dunk for the 49ers side. This is the Prop Bowl 24 coming to you live from Las Vegas right here in The Gambler. We're back after this. Once again, coming to you live from Las Vegas, it is Prop Bowl 24. Sean Brace, Jon Jansen.
How many years have you been doing this?
I think 4. I think this is our 4th year. Yes, 4th year. And Tansey's been a part of every one. So have you. So have I. And Roy Burton joining us for his first time. We got Sean Bernard behind the glass. Folks, once again, we are out here at Circa Resort Casino in Las Vegas, like yesterday, broadcasting live from Stadium Swim. Today we are in a bunker.
We see Stadium Swim.
We do see Stadium Swim, and if you are watching us on the stream, you could see it for yourself. But we are on a floor where there is nothing. But hey, look, bottom line is we got the internet connection rolling here. We got a nice table, beautiful backdrop, and it is frigid outside. So I'm happy to be inside at Circa Resort.
So we got based on teams in the Super Bowl, Kansas City, San Francisco, and we got Eagles ones. How did they come up with any San Francisco ones? Like, what was the process of going through that history and finding plays?
There's a lot to choose from.
There's so many to choose from.
We are coming to you, or presented by, playbookproducts.com, and that's what John is talking about right now, where these guys take the greatest moments in franchise history, program history, college, NFL, you name it, design the X's and O's plays that, of course, are the great moments in their history and really unique. They put them on coasters, you name it, T-shirts. Do yourself a favor, get over to playbookproducts.com and check it out. You'll love it. Over 300 plus pro and college teams, 13,000 5-star reviews. It tells you all you need to know. Yesterday, we were running around here talking to people, shaking hands and handing them out to
every single one of them
fans.
Loved it.
Yeah,
loved it.
Like
I said, do you like the play Wasp? They go, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to take that.
The drive I'm holding right now.
I'm holding the catch 2.
Nice.
The catch 2 I like a lot.
All right.
Is the catch 2 better than catch 1? I like catch 2. I know catch 1's more famous, but I like catch 2.
Let's get it back over to Super Bowl 58, of course, going down on Sunday. Roy Burton, Joe Tansey, Sean Brace, Jon Jansen, Prop Bowl 24 right here on The Gambler. Boys, we already started with the quarterbacks, a little bit on the running backs. Now let's talk a little bit about the receivers here. And the tight end position is where I want to go to first. We know Kelce, right? And Joe, I think you brought up Kittle already, and you brought up he's a dynamic blocker, and that's absolutely true. We do have a number that is on the move from total receiving yards for George Kittle at 49.5. I still love it.
I love that number.
Still love the over. 47.5 was what it was last week. It's something that I was eyeing up. I could see him going for 50 plus. He's a guy that seems to find that seam and hit that out fade towards the sideline, and Purdy and him hook up quite often. So I could see that happening for Super Bowl Sunday. We've seen as my headphones have gone out now, we've seen Kittle break big time plays Monday Night Football against the Seahawks. Why not here Super Bowl Sunday in the biggest spot for these teams? Joe Tansey, your thoughts on George Kittle?
Thank you for going to me first. I'm the tight end whisperer of the group. Yeah, look, I think I have to bet George Kittle at this point, knowing my my history with tight ends. I actually think it's a nice number at 49.5. And you're right, the way with Kittle, the way he operates, he's not the dink and dunk type guy that Kelsey may be in this game. Kelsey, he'll get the possession based 5-10 yard receptions, whereas with Kittle, I think his receptions are more down the field. And I think that the middle of the field can be open and can be exploitable in this matchup, especially with everything I just said about the Kansas City cornerbacks being all over Samuel and Ayuk. So I think that's a way to look at it. I actually here's a way to look at it with Kittle. So if we're assuming that all of these guys are being covered by the top cornerbacks, they'll break free for sure, whatever. But I think George Kittle to have the longest reception at plus 500 is actually a prop to keep an eye on, because
the yak is it, because he's going to get maybe 20 yards and then 30, 40 yards downfield.
And I think that the biggest candidates for that are MVS, Justin Watson. I don't think Kelsey's a candidate for that. The only way he does that if he runs and breaks free. And the same thing with Ayuk and Samuel. I don't think they're going to be deep bombs they're catching, but the yak are really going to play into that. So I could see Kittle catching a 25, 30-yard bomb and cashing in on that longest reception prop. And I hate that I'm on all 49ers props, but I think that's where some of the value is, knowing because everybody's betting on Kelsey. So, I think Kittle longest reception at plus 500 is a way to sprinkle on top of his receiving yards.
I like that.
Roy Burton?
I love that Kittle number. It was actually, as of Tuesday, if you shopped around a little bit, you could find that number at 46.5. I wasn't lucky enough to lock it in there. But, over 49.5 yards, I think that's a really good number for Kittle. He's cleared that number in 9 of his last 12 games. And in 8 of those games, he had 68 yards or more. So if you want to even play that up, to 50, 60 yards, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. Casey allows, like 45 yards a game thereabouts to tight ends. They've been pretty good against tight ends this year, but Kittle's Kittle. So, I think Kittle's a little bit of a different brand than the average tight end that Kansas City faced, over the years. So I think that's a really good play. I absolutely love that play. That was probably my second or third best play after the Pacheco rushing yards prop. I really like this Kittle 49.5 yards receiving yards on Sunday.
Because this is the prop bowl and because we can get super niche with things, over on DraftKings, the first reception by each player, George Kittle's first reception prop is 11.5 yards. I'll take the over.
He's going over. Yeah,
I will take the over on that at minus 115. Look, we just talked about how he's going to be used across the middle, and I think there's yak involved. He's not a short pass guy. He's an across the middle chunk play guy, which I think is why his receiving yard over, I think, is in play the entire game, because it could take 2 drives in the second half and he can hit that. I think that's important to note with Kittle more than it is with Kelsey. So I'll take Kittle first reception, at over 11.5. And I'm taking him longest reception as well at plus 500. Again, I'm just all on the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm all in on Kittle too. I like his over 3.5 receptions. It's a little juiced up, so I know it's a lot. I think it's like minus 160. That's a really juiced up number. But I still like over 3.5. I like over 49.5. I like over 11.5 for his first reception. Yeah, he's going to get the over the middle stuff, the big play. But the thing for him that is always great, and the thing that Travis Kelce probably doesn't have anymore, is yards after the catch. Kelce used to be very good at that. He's getting a little older in age. Not his best thing now. Kittle still, yards after the catch is phenomenal. He breaks tackles, really hard to get down. So, yeah, I like a lot of Kittle props for sure.
Roy, let's talk about Travis Kelce here. And we did just jab at it a little bit. Number just went up a tick. Hysterical that we're talking about it. 70.5 now as far as receiving yards. That is at minus 125 on DraftKings Sportsbook. 5.5. I want to say receptions was his number. Let me see that. 6.5. Excuse me. And it's juiced up to the gills at -1.
6.5 and 70 yards.
66. Yes, that is Travis Kelce's market right now. Anything for you on Travis Kelce as a whole? You could talk to me about anytime touchdown, first touchdown at +600. Receptions we just went over, yards. What is your thoughts on Travis Kelce for Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, specifically for those two, the yards and the receptions, obviously I like the yards more. At that number, I think it's -130. Like he's covered that number in each of the 3 preseason games this year. He's averaging in 21 postseason games. In 21 postseason games, he's averaging 86 yards per game. He's going to get that number. He's going to get a lot of work on Sunday. So I'm not really concerned about the 70.5 receiving yards. Just to kind of dovetail on Joe's point about the first reception, when I checked, the last time I checked, the Travis Kelce first reception was over 8.5 yards, which is -105. I think that's a pretty good number. He's averaging 11.5 yards of reception this postseason. I think 8.5 is a pretty decent number. I think they'll probably try to hit him for a nice, chunk play for the first play to get a first down. So if individual Kelce bets, I like the over 8.5 on the first reception. And look, anytime touchdown. I mean, I think he's going to be in a lot of single game parlays, on this weekend, because 19 touchdowns in 21 postseason games. I mean, the man's almost automatic at this point when it comes to finding the end zone. So, -110 isn't the best value in the world, but I have no problems taking that as well.
Joe Tansey, your thoughts on Travis Kelce?
Travis Kelce, 70 receiving yards. George Kittle, 50 receiving yards in a same game parlay at DraftKings at +230.
Whoa.
There you go.
Hot.
I like it.
Yeah. Like, what's not?
I'm all in on both tight ends.
You know darn well Kelce's going to be the guy. And I love this. I love when everybody goes, well, Travis Kelce is going to be the number 1 target, and they're going to stop. Look, we saw that front and center last year in the Super Bowl. It was.
We also knew that in these previous few preseason. Now, Roy, you're messing with me now.
Sorry about that.
Playoff games. Yeah, you're right.
Postseason games, like it doesn't matter what Kelce, what your take on him is. Mahomes is going to throw to him. It's the Brady level with Gronk and Edelman, where he is going to get the ball. Don't overthink yourself when it comes to these bets. Travis Kelce will probably get upwards of 10, 11, 12 targets in this game, and it's perfectly okay to bet on that. I think 70.5 is a great line for him. Like I said, it's 70-plus yards in each of his last 12 playoff games. 12. Bet it.
Well, I think that people are going to be all over him and Kittle, especially listening to us right here.
Especially because both secondaries are good. I think you can attack.
Right. That's my entire angle on this game is I'm staying far away from receivers.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
All right. Well, I want to get into that market right now as far as the receivers are concerned. And let's continue. And you know what, Roy, I'll start with you since Tansey already let us know his thoughts on this. Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Jennings. Where are you at on 49ers pass catchers for Super Bowl Sunday?
I'm right there with Joe. I just don't like any of these receiver props.
We need to stop agreeing on these things, by the way.
Look.
This goes very poorly when all of us at the Gambler agree on things.
I can't be contrarian on this one. I mean, we can be contrarian just for clicks and views and things like that. But I mean, this is going out on over the airwaves. So I'm attached to this. So I got to speak the truth. And the truth is, I just don't like these receiver props for the Niners. If you're going to bet anybody to score a touchdown of those Niners receivers, I guess I'd bet Debo, because Debo gets more touches than these other guys. I mean, he's out-touched, Ayuk by double in the postseason so far, even though he got hurt in that Green Bay game. But Debo scored 1 touchdown in the last 5 games. So, I mean, he's not a lock to score a touchdown either. So at +235, I don't hate Debo. I mean, he's had games where he's had 2 games this year where he scored a rushing and a receiving touchdown. So he's a threat multiple different ways, but I don't love these guys. But at +235, maybe it's worth a flyer on an anytime Debo touchdown, but I don't like these receiver props at all.
I'm with you on just Debo, because he is, I mean, they're making game plans around him. And when he got hurt with a shoulder injury, they kind of didn't really know what to do. They had to kind of improvise the offense a little bit. But he is getting so involved, and Kyle Shanahan's pretty much almost running the offense through him with unique play designs. He can run the ball a lot, obviously, and also great pass catcher, is used well with screens. But yeah, I think if there's any pass catcher on the 49ers, it's probably Debo.
Joe, let's talk about Kansas City then.
Hold on 1 second.
What's up?
I will say bet Debo over 16.5 rushing yards.
Oh, yes.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to approach Debo because, like you said, John, the Niners are going to approach this game at heavy workload of McCaffrey and Debo, I think. And I think you're going to see whether it be third down plays, red zone, whatever. I think he gets 2 or 3 rushing times. And I said earlier, I think he throws a pass too. So I think he's going to be heavily involved, just not catching a ton.
That is great.
He is the entire offense.
Yes. Him and McCaffrey.
All right. Now let's get on over to Kansas City's receivers, Joe, and I want to hear your thoughts because you talked about the hierarchy as far as pass catchers are concerned for Kansas City. We know Kelsey's at the top. Please break it down a little bit more, and I'll pull up the numbers. But who's that second target? Who's going to possibly be someone that we're not discussing, people aren't paying attention to? Will there be somebody that comes out of nowhere to a point? Like, is it Noah Gray? Let me ask you that. Where do you stand on Kansas City's receivers?
Well, I mentioned Justin Watson earlier. I think he's the guy to target from a prop perspective. But look, Rashee Rice is very clearly the number 2 target. But in the matchup, does Travarius Ward just like shadow him around the entire field? That's what I'm concerned about. Because if you take him away, then you're forcing these guys who are number 3 receivers at best to be number 1 receivers and complement Travis Kelce. And that's really difficult. So I think if you're San Francisco and you look at this game plan of Kansas City offense, look, you allow Kelce to get his, that's going to happen regardless. But if you contain him, if you limit him enough and take away Rashee Rice and his dynamic playmaking ability, then you're really limiting what Kansas City can do. Now, Andy Reid can dial things up and make those adjustments. He's more than capable of that. But I think that's the way I would approach it. Now, I'm not an NFL defensive coordinator. I'm just a degenerate. So that doesn't mean a thing. But that's the way I would game plan it.
First step is always admitting. I like
Western Illinois minus 1.5 tonight.
You're brutal.
Good grief.
Good God, Joe.
All right. Roy, do you agree, disagree anything on Kansas City's wide receivers from Tansey's take there?
Again, we have to agree. I mean,
stop agreeing with me, Roy.
Rashee Rice is the guy, and then John and Sean, I've told you several times, like the other guys, like it's basically you're playing a lottery with basically these other guys. You have no idea who's going to get the work. If I'm going to pick a guy, I'm going to again, since Joe said this before, I'll go with Justin Watson because he's kind of the intermediate guy. Like I think he'll just get more targets just in general. Like MVS is your big play guy, but he's only going to get a couple of targets, I would imagine, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. I think there could be a possibility where the game script goes where you're going to have to kind of throw a bunch of intermediate routes. And if Rashee Rice is pretty locked up, then maybe you can find Justin Watson underneath for a couple of 12, 13-yard gains. So if it's anybody, again, I'll go Justin Watson. But these other guys, I mean, like it's basically like you're rolling the dice with these guys because you just have no idea where the work's going to go.
You definitely are. And the only one that I like, I don't like many Kansas City receiver props, but I like Marquez Valdez-Scantling over 14.5 for longest reception. He's going to get, Roy, you're right, 2 or 3 targets.
Yeah.
But he catches 2. Right. His stat lines usually are 2 catches, 60 yards. So I think he's going to go over that. It just moved from 13.5 to 14.5. It's still minus 110. But that's the only thing I like outside of, Travis Kelce stuff. I'm not big on Justin Watson. Rashee Rice, he's going to get locked up. I really think they're going to put an emphasis on stopping him. So I think it's, longest reception. Mahomes is going to try and get on the field at least once or twice. And MVS is the guy for that.
Yeah, we got Beef checking in. Sickos podcast. They're next. I could not have told you. If you gave me 100 guesses, I would have never pulled Leathernecks. Never. Is that even real? Is that true?
That's real. That's real. The Western Illinois Leathernecks is their real. That's the nickname.
What's a leatherneck?
Like, I have no idea.
Okay,
I have no idea.
Right.
I thought I knew sports. Leatherneck, a U.S. Marine, is a leatherneck.
Oh, respect.
Okay.
I did not know that.
That's a quick Google search. It's a military slang term in USA for a member of the United States Marine Corps. Does that mean it's not good? No, I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Sorry. Prop Bowl 24. Hey, don't make me think. We're in Vegas.
This is what happens when you make Sean the wheels in Sean Brace's brain go. Yeah. it's a scary sight.
Yeah,
I will mention with Watson, looking up his game log, it's 1 catch for 18, 1 catch for 31, 1 catch for 41. Like, he's not going to catch a ton of passes whatsoever, but he's going to catch that intermediate pass. It's going to be somewhere around 15 to 20 yards. That's why I'm willing to take him at 16.5 and nothing more, because like we talked with Kittle, he's going to be most effective across the middle, maybe running a post route, whatever it may be, 10, 15 yards. That's essentially what Justin Watson's going to do on these plays. And I think it comes down to how much they end up limiting the 49ers, limiting Rashee Rice. And the MVS longest reception is a slam dunk to take just because he's their deep threat. He's not a possession guy.
Yeah, these numbers are moving, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
All of them.
Well,
Isaiah Pacheco just moved up to 68.5 for his rushing yards. Patrick Mahomes is now 261.5. Marcus Valdes-Scantling again, he went up. Brock Purdy's interception prop was 130, now minus 140.
Yep.
These are moving big time.
Well, again, you got all these people that are starting to feel and starting to say, you know what, okay.
Now is right. Now is when they start really firing away.
I do want to say, too, with the Chiefs, again, I'll drive this point home like I did in the first segment. Keep an eye on Jerick McKinnon's status, because if he's actually playing, if he's active, I would look into his receptions or receiving yards. If not, I think Edwards-Hilaire's numbers bump up maybe a yard or two on the props. So maybe you try and get ahead of that. But I don't think Edwards-Hilaire is involved if McKinnon plays. But that's the angle. I think that's the X factor for Kansas City. If McKinnon plays, that is huge. And I've already seen a few people I know hop on his anytime touchdown scorer prop just in case, because he is that important to them.
All right, let's go ahead a little bit quick because we're tight on time here. You boys gave us an hour. Greatly appreciate it. Prop Bowl 24.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface on these props, too.
Let's talk about defensive sacks. And I saw Kurt Warner pumping something he's pushing on the Radio Row, where 8 sacks, and somebody could win $1 million. I'm like, what? Anyways, there has been some Super Bowls where it's been lopsided, 5+ sacks. There's been a couple games this year where we've seen, the 49ers get after the quarterback with Bosa and that defensive front that they have. The Chiefs, we know what they're able to do as far as getting after the quarterback. Where do you guys stand on that number? Do you like any player to get a sack, number one? And as far as a team total sacks, can you see them getting Mahomes down, which is the toughest quarterback to sack in the NFL, or versus Purdy? Can they get to Purdy and take him down as well? Roy, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, if I'm going to pick anybody to get a sack, I'll probably pick Chris Jones. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy, solid pick, plus 120.
Plus 120.
Over a quarter of a sack. Mahomes doesn't get sacked a lot, so I don't know if I'm going to necessarily take any of the Niners guys. I think he's been sacked 3 times during his postseason run this year. Obviously Nick Bosa is really good and all that stuff, but Mahomes is pretty good at evading the rush. I think the Chiefs are going to throw a lot defensively at Purdy, and Purdy's going to run out of some of that, but some of that he's not going to. So I'll take Chris Jones at plus 120. Team sacks, I'm looking right now. Team sacks and Niners total is over 1.5 at minus 145, and the Chiefs is over 2.5 at plus 105. I don't hate that Chiefs number, plus 105 to get 3 sacks. That seems like a lot, so I don't know if I bet it, but plus 105 is pretty decent value against Brock Purdy. So I like it. I don't love it. I'd bet plus 105 to over 2.5 sacks for the Chiefs.
Joe, sacks, anything for you?
Nothing sacks, but if you can find me a L'Jarius Sneed to get an interception prop, I will gladly respectfully and responsibly hammer that. I truly believe in the birth of a child bump, and he's played fantastic football all season long. And at some point, the Niners are going to have to force it to their top guys. So I like that. I'm actually going to sprinkle on a pick 6 at plus 475 because of that angle.
It's a nice number.
And I think that the team that does it is Kansas City.
All right. Let's go ahead and finish up with this one. Field goals made, special teams. Over 1.5. I saw a lot of people talking about the Chiefs. They like the field goals there at minus 120. I think that number tells you all you need to know on that one. And Moody for the 49ers over 1.5 at plus 105. Joe, back to you. Anything for field goals? Do you believe we will see some kicking, actually? Not Dan Campbell coaching on Sunday.
Yes. Kansas City to have the longest field goal made at minus 110. Harrison Butker is a far better kicker than Jake Moody, and that's the analysis.
Oh, that's why we go to you for our kicking stats. I like that. Not Jay Feely, Joe Tansey. Roy, anything for you on field goals? Do you like that from Kansas City standpoint? I talked myself into it.
Yeah, give me Jake Moody plus 105 at over 1.5. I think there'll just be a couple. The Niners will kind of get close to they'll get close to the scoring, but not quite get there. And Jake Moody's not the best kicker, but I mean, just 2 field goals in this game. I think that's a pretty good plus 105. I think that's pretty good value for Jake Moody. So I'll take that.
Remember, Kyle Shanahan's really conservative. He will kick. He will not go on fourth down a lot. Like, I know we look at him. He is an offensive genius, like great play caller, great mind for offense, but he's so conservative when he coaches, and he's probably going to end up settling for some field goals here. So I do like that, Roy. I do.
All right, let's go ahead and close up shop with this one, and everybody can take this our predictions on this one and put it to the team totals or whatever it may be from the other props as far as that is concerned. Final score, boys. What's the total number? Final score. I need to hear it. Let's do some math. Get the wheels turning in my brain. Tansey, I'll come to you first. What do you got?
24-20 49ers.
24-20 Niners. That stays under. That's 44. I like it. Roy Burton?
24-20 Chiefs.
No!
Come on! You can't hit the same score.
That's my score.
Together all the way.
I got my Moody field goals put into that. 24-20 Chiefs. That's my number.
All right. Jon Jansen?
I'm going 21-20 Chiefs. I think Chiefs are definitely going to score the first few drives in the first half. They'll probably have I'm thinking like a 14-3, 14-7 lead going into the half. You need one more score to just really put it away. But yeah, 21-20 is what I'll settle.
I'm going 27-21, and it goes over by a half a point. 47.5 still hanging steady?
Yeah.
So there it is. And I got
who's winning the game, Sean?
Oh, I got the Chiefs. Chiefs. Yeah. I say this as all love and respect. Like, to me, it's a Super Bowl. You got sharp money. You got, square money on both sides. I just, it's got to be such a public play with Mahomes. One time for the public, please. One time for the public. Not you, Joe. Great stuff.
Look, somebody has to be different. I mean, how many plays of the same have the 4 of us had?
Yeah. No, you're right. Look, and the beauty is, like we just went down, you're on a lot of 49ers props. You think they're going to win, right? I like the 49ers props. There's some 49ers players that I like we discussed with Kittle. That's definitely going to be on my card for Super Bowl Sunday. All right, Prop Bowl 24 live from Las Vegas. Can't thank the boys enough. Joe Tansey, JTansey90. Be sure to follow him. Roy Burton at the BS line. Be sure to follow him as well. Jon Jansen, I am Sean Brace, live from Las Vegas. Once again, Prop Bowl 24. Good luck on all your plays.